Brady, welcome back, buddy.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, man.
Yeah, of course, it's my pleasure. So, we've had an awful lot going on in the Hedera space, and we've been trying to set up these DeFi corners over the past few weeks, but we haven't fit it in. And we know there's tons of stuff going on in the DeFi space. So, let us know what's going on.
Yeah, that's right. We'll jump into it. Lots of growth in the Hedera ecosystem, and especially in the DeFi ecosystem, just over the last couple months. Even obviously, a lot of that is seen driven by HBAR's price increase, and that's sort of continued at a steady click. So, kicking things off with DeFi TVL, we're seeing about $363 million in TVL in US dollar value. This is a new addition to the way that we're reviewing metrics for DeFi Corner, adding some visual elements to be able to view sort of the growth in a more productive way than just month over month. But we can see here total value locked on Hedera, 363.28 million. And it's been a huge boost starting right around October, November timeframe. And hopefully we continue to see that growth over time. Next up is monthly DEX volume. So a good majority of this is being driven by Saucer Swap's decentralized exchange. There's also additional exchanges on Hedera like HSuite and HeliSwap. And for December of 2024, we saw 629.55 million US dollars in exchange volume for that month. It's the largest amount of volume that the Hedera ecosystem has seen in its decentralized exchanges. We're only halfway through January, but so far we're on track, again to hit, significant amount of trading volume on DEXs on the network. And I think a good amount of that too is being driven by some of the meme tokens that we're seeing, which we'll get to a little bit later. But memejob.fun has launched, and that's been a huge boon for both TVL as well as decentralized exchange volume. Stablecoin liquidity. So stablecoin TVL today is sitting at $8.91 million. Two of the leading contributors to that are through Saucer Swap and through Bonzo Finance. Saucer Swap's TVL for stablecoin liquidity, which the go-to stablecoin on Hedera is native USDC, sitting at about 5.36 million. And then on Bonzo Finance, around 3.55 million. So both of those are big contributors to this. I think what's great is that we're seeing as USDC is being minted on the Hedera network, which there's about $40 million in USDC that has been minted and is considered sort of active liquidity on the network. A good portion of that, as more gets minted, gets brought into the on-chain ecosystem and supplied into decentralized exchanges as well as lending protocols.
Brady, real quick on
Yeah.
stablecoins. Now, we sat at between $6 and $9 million. We've seen a really big uptick here. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, so I think we've been sitting between 6 and 9 million in liquidity for a while. I have not been able to exactly figure out what the institutions are or the individuals are that have been cranking up on the minting side of things. Right now, the accessibility of USDC is still fairly minimal, at least from a retail perspective. So, USDC on Hedera isn't available on centralized exchanges. There are a few pretty large on and off ramp providers that allow you to mint and bring in USDC to the ecosystem, but there are limitations on that. For example, you can only do $5,000 per day. So my educated guess would be that there are institutions that are supporting the Hedera ecosystem across the board and using like a Circle Mint account or a standard Circle account to mint USDC. And then my, again, educated guess is that portions of that are being provided to market makers to be able to bring that into the on-chain ecosystem, or it's those individuals that are, bringing that into the on-chain ecosystem as well. One hypothesis as well is that I know that we have bridging coming online very soon. And the way that some of these bridging mechanisms are going to work is that they allow for the bridging of USDC from another network onto Hedera, and the end result being that once bridged, it appears in the wallet as native Hedera USDC. And in order to facilitate that, USDC needs to be on chain in primary DEX on Hedera, because there's a swap mechanism that's going to take place in order for it to land in wallets as Hedera native USDC. So, I again, speculating an educated guess, but I think it's in preparation potentially for that to take place. But, we'll see how that ends up playing out.
Now, the other thing when it comes to stablecoins that I want to point out, of course, I want to have HBAR native staking at a more competitive rate, but there are places where you can find yield all over the DeFi space. Right now, that pool that you mentioned on Saucer Swap yields, and this is the V1 pool. Of course, it's variable with the V2 pool, but on the V1 pool, you're getting about 41% for providing liquidity between the HBAR and USDC pairs. So there's certainly places to get yield in this space.
Yeah, no doubt. And looking at Saucer Swap pools, V2 pools, I've seen APY rates up to 200%. I think that one's for the V2 USDC HBAR pool. And so the demand seems to be there. There's significant amount of trading volume that's driving, these APYs. On Bonzo even, as soon as USDC liquidity gets supplied, and we're sitting at about, 3.6 million there, it immediately gets borrowed. And the APY rates, in conjunction with that end up going up. We've seen for, a week at a time, APY rates for supplying as high as, 20, 30, 40%. So it is really interesting to watch that. The demand is there for sure. Next, we have staking. So liquid and native staking. Liquid staking for HBAR X through Stader Labs is sitting at about 6.01%. So, the way that works is users supply HBAR and stake it through Stader Labs. They receive HBAR X, which is a liquid staking token for HBAR, and are earning 6% on that. And then native staking through Hedera, where essentially you stake your account with HBAR in it to the various nodes on the network. That's at about 0.082%.
Need to work on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, there's lots of discussion happening in the ecosystem around raising that native staking rate, having it be a bit more competitive to some of the other, competing networks to Hedera. But no sort of promises, I guess, on that, but we'll see.
I'm hoping with Charles moving in there that we're going to get some kind of movement. But as I said before, there's plenty of other opportunities out there, and that's what we're talking about today.
Absolutely. And then jumping into ecosystem updates. So this is some of the latest from various DeFi-focused projects and Hedera itself across the ecosystem. So on Bonzo Finance, it's an Aave-based lending protocol. On the Hedera network, it's sitting at about $37.8 million in TVL. And then active loans is sitting at about 6.5 million. In terms of lending protocols, it is heavily reliant on stablecoin liquidity. If you look at any lending protocol across the Web3 space, stablecoins end up being the largest drivers of utilization in lending protocols. So the borrowing that takes place, I think it's just because, stablecoins, they open up the door to strategies within lending that you otherwise would not be able to have. And also the fact that it has, that stable rate, folks see that as definitely less risky in terms of an asset to be borrowed with regards to propensity for liquidation, because it does not fluctuate in price. So, from a lending protocol perspective on the network, the more that we can get stable coins going on Hedera, the better off that lending ecosystem is going to be. And we've got Bonzo Finance that's live today, but we also have Serio Finance, which is another lending protocol that should be going live, either this or next month. So it's definitely an exciting time on the lending front for the ecosystem. For Saucer Swap, one of the recent sort of announcements and updates that they have is that Saucer Swap is the number 17 DEX by TVL across all decentralized exchanges in Web3.
Nice.
We're seeing about $159.7 million in TVL. So it's so awesome to see Saucer Swap continue to rise in the ranks, across the entirety of the space. I think that's amazing, and they definitely deserve it. They've done such a good job at shipping new functionalities, and I know they have their big roadmap update that's coming up soon. So we should see some exciting things coming out from them. Latest with regards to sort of Hedera in general. So there was the crypto ball that was hosted in DC on January 17th. And through socials, we've seen a ton of updates from that event. There's been a bunch of individuals at the various organizations that are supporting the Hedera network that were in attendance for that. Folks from the HBAR Foundation, folks from the Hedera organization itself on the policy front, and then Mance from the Hashgraph organization, also co-founder of Hedera, was there. And just really cool to see the presence that Hedera had at that crypto ball event. It looks like they were meeting with a number of different prominent people across the space. Michael Saylor,
David Sachs,
that was a cool one. Brian from Coinbase. And, just it seemed like a lot of discussion was taking place, I'm sure, between, Hedera folks and other prominent people across the ecosystem. And I think just the presence that Hedera had at that event is definitely a positive thing in my mind here. And then HederaCon on February 25th. So Hedera is hosting, I think, the first conference. Well, it's technically the second conference, because there was a Hedera conference that took place back in 2018. And so, it's really cool to see that Hedera is having its own ecosystem conference now. They're doing it during the week of Ethereum Denver. So it lines up really nicely with an event that I think is probably one of the most prominent, at least in the US, in terms of attendance by developers and retail users. And of all the crypto conferences that I've been to, ETH Denver has definitely been one of the best ones, just in terms of all the activities that are taking place there, the developer presence, the innovation. And then Hedera is sponsoring ETH Denver as well, so they'll have a large presence at the event. So super excited for that. I'll be there. I know you'll be there. I think both of us are doing something related to some panels or presentations at HederaCon as well. Axelar. So, I think it's highly anticipated, this Axelar cross-chain integration, which has been moving swiftly, and we've been getting updates over the last few months about that. My understanding is that integration should be going live soon, hopefully by end of this month, maybe early next month. But again, going back to discussions about bridging stablecoin liquidity, I think that's going to be a huge focus with regards to this Axelar cross-chain integration, and hopefully some bridges that utilize Axelar that come online that allow for the bringing of liquidity and new users into the Hedera ecosystem. And again, boosting those stablecoin rates is going to be very cool to see.
So I see the last thing you have on your list is meme coins, and there's been an awful lot of news across the entire crypto space when it comes to meme coins. But of course, Hedera's doing a good job on its own.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of going around on X, seeing posts about memejob.fun and the tokens that are being issued and listed there. It seems to be attracting people from other networks as well. I've seen for example, some folks that were heavily in the Solana meme coin ecosystem checking out Hedera's meme coin ecosystem, which was really cool to see. Looking at some of the analytics for Memejob, there's about 13 tokens now that are sitting at over $200,000 market cap. And then the largest, meme coin on Hedera is the Dino coin, sitting at 4.01 million, which is really cool. It's definitely something that's been like a big boon for the DeFi ecosystem and just the on-chain ecosystem in general. That's been like a big meta from Solana and Base and other networks. And it's really cool to see Hedera start to participate in that as well. And obviously, just within this last 3 days, there's the Trump meme coin that was officially created by a Trump organization affiliate called CIC Digital. Definitely still digesting that, but that is now that token is sitting at number 14 in terms of market cap across the entire ecosystem at about, I think it's $17 billion in market cap, and then like a $71 billion fully diluted value. So it's pretty crazy to see the influx there.
Yeah, well, speaking of meme coins, I am going to be interviewing the founder of the Gib meme coin. I think that's number 2 or 3 on our list, so I'm looking forward to that. But I see that's the last thing on your list. I do have some more questions around DeFi that I wanted to hit you up with. But did you have anything else you wanted to cover?
No other updates. Happy to answer some questions.
Sure. So it's around karate. We have Karate Combat 52 coming up here. I did participate and I borrowed on Bonzo Finance a fair amount of karate for the last one. I've already doubled that. I've borrowed twice as much for this event. But you said you were going to make some additional tweaks this time. So the yields might be able to go a little bit higher or something along those lines. How much could you potentially pay if you're borrowing karate this time around?
Yeah, that's right. So we actually wrote up a blog posting that sort of dissected everything that took place on Bonzo Finance with regards to the karate market and sort of what took place during that last event in December. And it's a super interesting deep dive that sort of showcases the user behavior with regards to lending markets for this asset. Karate asset is very unique in that its utility is heavily driven around these would have been monthly events that take place where you can use it to participate in no lose betting on the fighter card for the event. And because of that sort of event driven mechanism, it definitely drives unique user behavior for lending, whereby people are both withdrawing the karate asset from the lending pool, and at the same time, they are borrowing the karate asset as well. So maybe they collateralize like HBAR or USDC or any of the supported assets, and then borrowing karate to go use for these events. The APY rates, originally for the first event were set up such that the sort of peak borrow APY was around 150%. And we did see, extreme utilization of the pool in that scenario. It went up to, I think, around 97%. And usually with a lending protocol, you don't want to see utilization rates go that high. The parameters are supposed to be really set up in such a way that there is large enough incentive for people to want to repay their loans, as well as supply liquidity to the pool to help balance things out. And so, what was adjusted or learned from that was that the rates weren't high enough to create a big enough incentive for the market to achieve its like optimal equilibrium or optimal utilization rate. And so the interest rates in very short summary were the parameters were raised to have a borrow APY that at a max would hit around a 300% APY for borrowing, assuming full utilization of the pool. That also reflects in a supply APY being much higher as well. So, with that parameter change, we're going to see potentially some different user behavior related to that. And again, it's something that we'll learn from at this next event that's coming up, I think on January 24th. And then, yeah, we'll go from there. But definitely check out that blog posting if you're interested in sort of dissecting what happened at the last event, the parameter changes that were made, and maybe what we expect to see in future events. And this is applicable, I think, to all sports league tokens too. So if a sports league token adopts the same types of mechanisms as karate, then we'll probably see sort of similar user behavior for those tokens as well. And we know with up-only gaming starting and being able to templatize what karate did for other sports leagues, we hope to see that for other sports leagues as well.
Well, the growth we're seeing with karate is amazing. The last event, they were up to 225,000 unique users. And I think the dynamics around this are going to completely change because right now they have the snapshot. So the event is happening on Friday night. So that snapshot is going to be taken on Wednesday evening. So you just have to have that karate in your karate app or that wallet during that small window. But they're going to go to a model where they actually stake it. So you have to have it in that app, in that wallet, the entire month leading up to the next event to actually participate. So the entire yield curve, everything is going to change. But right now it is interesting to see how people deal with that. All right, Brady. Well, I appreciate you coming on here today and giving us a deep dive into everything that's happening within the Hedera DeFi ecosystem. We are going to try to make this happen on a little bit more regular basis. And besides that, go Birds, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for having me.